At our best friend's wedding, my girlfriend loudly declared, "He's too boring to ever surprise me. I deserve better." Everyone stared as she listed all my flaws. I didn't respond, I just walked out. When she got home ready to argue, all she found were empty drawers and a letter from the landlord, lease terminated, effective immediately. Now my phone won't stop buzzing, 92 missed calls and counting. I reckon there isn't anything quite like seeing the look on someone's face when they realize they've messed up really bad. For Savannah Grace Miller, that moment came around 8:42 p.m. on a sticky July evening at the River Oaks Country Club, but I'm getting ahead of myself. My name's Jackson Lee Cooper, friends call me Jack, and up until 3 weeks ago, I was what folks around these parts call spoken for. 5 years with Savannah, and I thought I knew what I was getting. Turns out, when you're with someone that long, you start missing the signs. Like how she'd roll her eyes whenever I'd talk about opening my own auto shop, or how she'd suddenly need to use the ladies' room whenever my mama called. But let me back up to where it all went sideways, at my best friend Colton's wedding. Now, Colton Beauregard and I go way back, all the way to Miss Patterson's kindergarten class where we bonded over chocolate milk and a mutual dislike of nap time. When he asked me to be his best man, there was no question about it. I helped him pick the ring for Sarah Beth, threw him the kind of bachelor party that stays between the men who attended and the good Lord above, and made sure he didn't pass out at the altar from nerves. The ceremony went off without a hitch. Sarah Beth looked like an angel floating down that aisle, and I swear I've never seen Colton smile so wide. After they said their I-dos, we all headed to the reception. The band was playing, the dance floor was full, and the open bar was earning its keep. Savannah looked gorgeous, I'll give her that. She always did. Her blonde hair was done up real fancy, and that blue dress hugged every curve the good Lord blessed her with. But something was off. She'd been drinking those fancy champagne cocktails like they were sweet tea on a hot summer day, and her laugh was getting louder with each one. I should have known trouble was brewing when she started talking to Sarah Beth's cousins from Atlanta, the ones who looked like they stepped right out of one of those reality TV shows. They kept glancing my way and giggling, but I figured they were just being silly after too much champagne. The DJ called for all the unmarried couples to join the newlyweds on the dance floor. I took Savannah's hand, but she pulled away. "Come on, darling," I said. "Let's show them how it's done." That's when she got that look, the one where her eyes narrow just a touch and her mouth gets all tight at the corners. I'd seen it before, usually right before she'd tell me my boots didn't match my belt or something equally important to her. "Why bother?" she said, loud enough that folks at the next table turned to look. "It's not like you'll ever be getting down on one knee anyway." I tried to laugh it off. "Savannah, let's not do this here." But she was just getting started. She stood up, champagne glass in hand, and I swear the room got quieter. "You know what's funny, Jack? Sarah Beth told me Colton surprised her with a weekend in Charleston before he proposed. And Melissa's boyfriend took her to New York. And what have you done? Taken me to the same steakhouse for my birthday 5 years in a row." My face felt hot. "Savannah, this isn't the time or place." "When is the time, Jack?" 5 years I've been waiting. 5 years of your one day and when the time is right. Meanwhile, I'm watching all my friends get rings on their fingers while I'm still just a girlfriend. By now, half the reception was watching us. I could see Colton moving our way from the corner of my eye, but he was too far to stop what was coming. "He's too boring to ever surprise me," she announced, turning to the Atlanta cousins like they were the jury and she was making her closing arguments. "I deserve better than a man who thinks adventure is trying a different flavor of barbecue sauce." She turned back to me, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't noticed before, a meanness that had maybe always been there. "You want to know why I've been staying late at the office? Because even my boss Harris is more exciting than you. At least he knows what a woman wants." The room went dead silent. I could hear ice clinking in glasses and the band shuffling their feet, not sure if they should start playing to break the tension. Savannah wasn't done. "You're predictable, Jack. Comfortable like an old shoe. You work on cars all day and come home smelling like motor oil. You watch football on Sundays and go fishing with your daddy on Saturdays. You think taking me to the county fair once a year is romantic." She listed off every single one of my flaws like she'd been keeping a notebook. Too quiet. Too steady. Too content. Like being reliable was some kind of character defect. Everyone was staring at me, waiting to see what I'd do. Holler back, maybe. Make a scene to match hers. But that's never been my way. I just set my beer down real careful like, straightened my tie, and looked her dead in the eye. "Thank you for your honesty, Savannah Grace." That was all. Then I walked out, past the whispering guests, past Colton who tried to catch my arm, past Sarah Beth who had tears in her eyes that shouldn't have been there on her wedding day. The summer night air hit me like a wave as I stepped outside. I loosened my tie and took a deep breath. 5 years. 5 years I'd spent loving a woman who thought I wasn't enough. I got in my truck, the same one she'd been nagging me to trade in for something newer, and just sat there for a minute. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Colton checking on me. Or maybe Savannah, realizing what she'd done. I didn't check. Instead, I started the engine and headed home. I had plans to make. The drive back to our apartment gave me time to think. We'd moved in together about 2 years ago, her idea, not mine. I'd wanted to wait until we were married, but Savannah said that was old-fashioned thinking. The place was more hers than mine anyway. I paid half the rent, but she picked out all the furniture, the fancy throw pillows that served no purpose I could figure, and those little decorative soaps in the bathroom that you're not supposed to actually use. As I pulled into the parking lot, I noticed Mrs. Abernathy, our landlady, sitting on her porch across the way. She was a widow going on 15 years now, with a soft spot for sweet tea, gossip, and me ever since I fixed her AC unit last summer free of charge. "Evening, Mrs. Abernathy," I called out as I got out of my truck. "Jack Cooper, why aren't you at that fancy wedding?" she asked, peering at me over her glasses. I walked over to her porch, taking my time. "Had a change of plans, ma'am." She studied my face for a moment, then patted the chair next to her. "Sit down, son. I just made a fresh pitcher." I sat, and she poured me a glass of tea so sweet it'd make your teeth hurt. "Savannah with you?" she asked, though I reckon she already knew the answer. "No, ma'am. I expect she'll be along later." Mrs. Abernathy nodded slowly. "You two have a falling out?" I sipped my tea, wondering how much to say. Mrs. Abernathy had sharp ears and a sharper tongue when it came to neighborly gossip. But there was something about her grandmotherly presence that made me want to unburden myself. "Yes, ma'am, I believe we did." She didn't press for details, just nodded again like she'd been expecting this. "Been noticing that fancy car parking down the street late at night. Silver one with the Huntsville dealership plates." My hand tightened around the glass. Harris drove a silver Lexus. Harris, who knew what a woman wanted. "When's your lease up, Jack?" Mrs. Abernathy asked, changing the subject so smooth I almost missed it. "End of next month, I believe." She took a sip of her tea, thinking. "You know, my nephew's looking for a place. Just got a job at the hospital. Quiet young man, responsible." I looked at her, starting to understand where this was going. "Lease termination usually requires 30 days notice," she continued, "but I've been known to make exceptions for the right reasons." I set my glass down. "Mrs. Abernathy, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" She smiled, all innocent-like. "I'm just saying if a tenant wanted to move out early, and I already had someone lined up to take over the lease, well, might be we could work something out." It hit me then, what I needed to do. Not just for my pride, but for my sanity. For the first time that night, I felt a smile tugging at my lips. "Mrs. Abernathy, I do believe we could come to an arrangement." We talked business for the next half hour. By the time I finished my tea, we'd worked out all the details. I'd be out by tomorrow night, and her nephew could move in next week. She'd even refund my portion of the security deposit, which was mighty generous considering the circumstances. As I stood to leave, she caught my hand in her bony fingers. "One more thing, Jack. That girl's going to come home and find you gone. Might be a good idea to leave a note explaining things." I shook my head. "With all due respect, Mrs. Abernathy, I don't owe Savannah any explanations." "Maybe not," she agreed, "but you owe it to yourself to end things properly. Be the better person. That's how you were raised." She was right, of course. Mama had always taught me to do things right, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "I'll leave her a note." Mrs. Abernathy nodded, satisfied. "Good boy. Now go on and get your affairs in order." I spent the next few hours packing up my life. Didn't realize until I started pulling clothes from drawers just how little of the apartment was actually mine. My tools, my clothes, a few books, my granddaddy's pocket watch, and a shoebox of memories was about all I could claim. As promised, I wrote Savannah a note. Not long, just enough to say what needed saying. "Savannah, I'm sorry I wasn't exciting enough for you. I hope Harris knows what you want better than I did. I've moved out and taken only what's mine. Mrs. Abernathy has the lease termination papers for you to sign. I've paid my share through the end of the month, so you have time to figure things out. Take care of yourself, Jack." I left it on the kitchen counter, right next to a copy of the lease termination notice Mrs. Abernathy had drawn up. Then I made one more call. "Colton? Yeah, it's me. I know you're busy being married and all, but I was wondering if I could crash at your mama's lake house for a few days." "Yeah, I'll explain everything later. Tell Sarah Beth I'm sorry for the scene." "Thanks, brother. I owe you one." By midnight, I was on the road to Lake Martin, my truck loaded with everything I owned in the world, feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone started buzzing around 2 a.m. I figured Savannah had finally made it home and found my note. I let it go to voicemail. Then it buzzed again. And again. By the time I reached the lake house, I had 7 missed calls and a dozen text messages, all from Savannah. I turned my phone off and went to bed. The next morning, I sat on the dock with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise over the water. It was peaceful out here, no drama, no expectations, just the quiet and the occasional splash of a fish jumping. When I finally turned my phone back on, it nearly vibrated out of my hand with notifications. 23 missed calls and 35 text messages, all from Savannah. I read through a few. "Where are you? Is this some kind of joke? You can't just leave like this. Call me back right now. Jack, I'm sorry. I didn't mean any of it. I was drunk and stupid. Please come home so we can talk about this. I've been calling you all night." I put the phone down without responding. What was there to say? She'd made her feelings clear in front of God and everybody. Wasn't anything left to discuss. Around noon, Colton called. I answered, figuring he deserved that much after I ducked out of his reception. "You all right, brother?" he asked. "Getting there," I replied. "How was the rest of the night?" "After you left, Savannah had herself a complete meltdown. Sarah Beth took her to the bathroom to calm her down, but apparently all she did was talk about how Harris was just a mistake and she really loves you." I snorted. "That right?" "Yeah." Then Harris showed up looking for her, and when Sarah Beth told him what happened, he got all weird and left. Turns out he didn't know Savannah had a boyfriend. That stung more than I wanted to admit. Sounds like quite a show. "Jack. What she did was terrible, but maybe you should talk to her. 5 years is a long time to throw away." I sighed. "She threw it away, Colton, not me. All I did was recognize it was already gone." He was quiet for a minute. "Fair enough. You staying out at Mama's place for a while?" "Just till I figure out what's next." "I appreciate it. Stay as long as you need. We're headed to Bermuda tomorrow for the honeymoon, but the place is yours." After we hung up, I checked my phone again. 41 missed calls now. I turned it off again and went fishing instead. For the next 3 days, I lived a simple life. Fishing in the morning, reading on the porch in the afternoon, cooking whatever I caught for dinner. Every night, I'd turn my phone on just long enough to check if there was anything important, then turn it right back off when I saw Savannah's name filling my screen. On the 4th day, a car came rolling up the gravel drive. I was sitting on the porch cleaning fish, and I knew without looking who it was. The car door slammed, and high heels crunched on gravel. 5 days, Jack Cooper. 5 days without a word. I looked up to see Savannah storming toward me, her face red and her eyes puffy. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, my t-shirt, I noticed, with her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked nothing like the polished woman who'd humiliated me at the wedding. "Hello, Savannah," I said calmly, going back to my fish. "Hello? Hello? That's all you have to say to me?" She was practically screaming now, standing at the foot of the porch steps. "I've been calling you for days. 92 times, Jack." I counted. I set my knife down and wiped my hands on a rag. "I know. I saw." "Then why didn't you answer?" "I've been worried sick. I thought you might be dead in a ditch somewhere." "I'm fine, as you can see." "How'd you find me?" She crossed her arms. "Your mama told me. After I called her crying, worried half to death." "Of course. Mama always did have a soft spot for Savannah." "Well, now you know I'm alive. Anything else?" Her face crumpled a little. "Jack, please. Can we talk? Really talk?" Part of me wanted to send her packing, but Mama raised me better than that. "You can sit if you want," I said, gesturing to the chair next to mine. She came up the steps and sat down, her eyes never leaving my face. Up close, I could see how exhausted she looked. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice small. "I was drunk and jealous and stupid." "Jealous of what?" "Of Sarah Beth. Of Melissa. Of everyone who was getting what I wanted." I shook my head. "You never told me what you wanted, Savannah. You just expected me to know." "I wanted you to marry me," she cried. 5 years together, and you never even hinted at proposing." That made me laugh, which only made her madder. "What's so funny?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, tossing it onto the table between us. Her eyes went wide. "Is that?" "Open it," I said. With shaking hands, she picked up the box and opened it. Inside was a diamond ring, not huge, but pretty, with a band of smaller stones surrounding the center diamond. "I bought it 3 months ago," I said quietly. "Was planning to propose on our anniversary next month. Had it all planned out, a weekend in Charleston, just like you mentioned you wanted. Even put a deposit down on that bed and breakfast you were always talking about." Her hand flew to her mouth. "Jack. Turns out I'm not as boring and predictable as you thought. But it doesn't matter now." Tears filled her eyes. "Of course it matters. Jack, I love you. What I said at the wedding. I didn't mean any of it." "See, that's where you're wrong," I said, leaning forward. "You did mean it. Maybe not the part about Harris, though I reckon there's some truth there too, but the rest? That came from somewhere real." "No. Yes. You've been feeling that way for a while, Savannah. I could tell. The way you'd sigh when I'd talk about my day at the shop. The way you'd compare me to your friends' boyfriends. The way you'd try to change me, bit by bit." She was crying openly now. "I was wrong. I see that now. You're everything I need, Jack. Please come home." I took a deep breath. "That's just it, Savannah. It isn't home anymore. Mrs. Abernathy terminated our lease, remember? We can find a new place. A fresh start." I shook my head. "No. The fresh start is for each of us, separately. You deserve someone who excites you, someone who surprises you. And I deserve someone who appreciates me for exactly who I am. But I do appreciate you." "No, you don't. You tolerate me while wishing I was different. That isn't appreciation, Savannah." She stared at me for a long moment, then looked down at the ring still in her hand. "So this is it? 5 years, just. Over? It was over the minute you stood up in front of all our friends and told them I wasn't enough for you. She tried to hand the ring back, but I shook my head. Keep it. Sell it. Do whatever you want with it. I don't want the ring, Jack. I want you. I stood up, signaling the conversation was over. I'm sorry, Savannah. I truly am. But sometimes sorry isn't enough to fix what's broken. She stood too, clutching the ring box like it was a lifeline. What am I supposed to do now? Whatever you want. That's the point of being single, you get to decide without worrying about boring old me holding you back. She flinched at that. Where will you go? Got a job offer from my uncle in Nashville. His auto shop is expanding, and he needs a manager. I'm headed there tomorrow. Nashville? Her voice cracked. That's 3 hours away. Yep. She looked around desperately, like she might find the right words hidden somewhere on the porch. Finally, she whispered, I really messed up, didn't I? For the first time since she arrived, I felt a twinge of pity. We both did, Savannah. The difference is, I'm willing to admit it and move on. She nodded slowly, then leaned in and kissed my cheek. Goodbye, Jack. I watched her walk back to her car, shoulders slumped in defeat. She paused at the driver's door and looked back at me, like she was memorizing my face. Then she got in and drove away, kicking up a cloud of dust behind her. I sat back down and picked up my knife, getting back to cleaning fish. My phone was still off, and that's how it would stay until I got to Nashville. Savannah Grace Miller was officially part of my past. 6 months later, I was settled into my new life in Nashville. Uncle Bobby's auto shop was doing better than ever with me running the day-to-day operations, and I'd even started taking some business classes at the community college. I bought a small house on the outskirts of town, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Had a decent yard for weekend barbecues and a garage big enough for all my tools. Colton and Sarah Beth had visited a few times, always bringing news from back home. Savannah had moved to Atlanta, apparently. Got a job at some big marketing firm and was dating a lawyer or a doctor or somebody important. The stories varied depending on who was telling them. Mrs. Abernathy wrote me once a month, keeping me updated on all the neighborhood gossip. It was a quiet Thursday evening when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but it had the area code from back home. Hello? Is this Jackson Cooper? The voice was unfamiliar, a woman, professional sounding. Yes, ma'am, it is. Mr. Cooper, my name is Elaine Davidson. I'm an attorney representing Savannah Miller. My stomach dropped. Is she all right? She's fine, physically. But she's asked me to contact you regarding some material that's been circulating online. Material? I was confused. What kind of material? The lawyer cleared her throat. Someone recorded Ms. Miller's incident at the Beauregard wedding and posted it online. It's gone somewhat viral, particularly in your hometown. I sat down heavy in my kitchen chair. I didn't have anything to do with that. We're not suggesting you did, Mr. Cooper. But it appears the video was taken by one of Sarah Beth's cousins from Atlanta, and it's causing Ms. Miller considerable distress. She's lost her job, and... Wait, I interrupted. She lost her job over this? The firm she worked for has a strict moral clause in their contracts. They felt the video reflected poorly on their brand. I ran a hand over my face. As much as Savannah had hurt me, I never wanted something like this to happen to her. What does she want from me? I asked. She's hoping you might make a statement. Something supportive that might help counter the less charitable comments being made online. I thought about it for a minute. Can I talk to her directly? There was a pause. One moment. I heard muffled voices, then Savannah came on the line. Jack? Her voice was small, nothing like the confident woman I'd known. Hey, Savannah. I'm sorry about the video. She let out a shaky breath. It's awful, Jack. People are saying terrible things. Calling me names. Someone even spray-painted Gold Digger on my car. That isn't right, I said firmly. No matter what happened between us. The worst part is, they're right about me. I was horrible to you. I deserve this. No, you don't, I said. Nobody deserves to be publicly humiliated like that. You did, she said softly. I did it to you first. I couldn't argue with that. The difference is, I chose to walk away. I didn't try to shame you online. I know. You've always been the better person. She sniffled. The lawyer thinks if you made a statement, it might help. But I understand if you don't want to. I thought about it. The Christian thing would be to help her, to turn the other cheek. But I wasn't sure I was feeling particularly Christian at the moment. Let me sleep on it, I said finally. I'll call you tomorrow. Thank you, Jack. For even considering it. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of bourbon and went out to sit on my porch swing. The night was cool, with a million stars shining down on me. I thought about Savannah, about the 5 years we'd spent together. About the good times before things went sour. About how she'd looked that last day at the lake house, broken and sorry. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called Savannah's lawyer back and told her my plan. She was surprised but agreed to arrange everything. 2 days later, I found myself sitting at a small table in a coffee shop in Nashville, waiting. The bell above the door jingled, and I looked up to see Savannah walking in. She looked different, hair shorter, clothes simpler. Her eyes were tired, but she managed a small smile when she saw me. "Jack. Thank you for doing this." I nodded toward the chair across from me. "Have a seat." The young woman with the camera, one of those YouTubers with a big following, the lawyer had explained, came over and set up her equipment. "We're just going to have a casual conversation," she told us. "Nothing scripted. Just be honest." When the camera started rolling, I took a deep breath. "My name is Jackson Cooper. By now, you've probably seen the video of my ex-girlfriend, Savannah Miller, at my best friend's wedding. You've seen her say some pretty harsh things about me, and you've seen me walk out. What you haven't seen is the rest of the story." I looked across at Savannah, who was watching me with nervous eyes. What happened that night was between Savannah and me. It wasn't meant to be entertainment for strangers on the internet. We were together 5 years, and in that time, we shared a lot of good memories. One bad night shouldn't define either of us. Savannah wiped away a tear. "I was wrong," she said, looking straight into the camera. "What I did was cruel and unfair. Jack didn't deserve any of it. He's a good man, the best man I've ever known. And I lost him because I was too blind to see what was right in front of me." The interview continued for about 30 minutes. We talked about how we met, about the good times, about where we both went wrong. It was honest but respectful. No mudslinging, no blame game. At the end, the YouTuber asked if we'd ever consider getting back together. Savannah looked at me with hope in her eyes, but I shook my head. "Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt," I said gently. "But that doesn't mean we can't wish each other well from opposite shores." Savannah nodded, accepting my answer. "Jack taught me what real love looks like. It's patient and kind. It doesn't keep score or hold grudges. I didn't deserve his love, but he gave it anyway. And now, he's teaching me about forgiveness." After the interview, we walked outside together. The fall air was crisp, and leaves crunched under our feet. "Thank you," she said. "You didn't have to do that." "I know. But it was the right thing to do." She looked up at me, searching my face. "Are you happy, Jack? In your new life?" I thought about it. "Getting there. You?" "Learning to be," she admitted. "It's hard, starting over." I nodded. "That it is." We stood there awkwardly for a moment, 5 years of history between us with nowhere to go. "I should get back," I said finally. "Got an early day tomorrow." "Of course." She hesitated, then asked, "Can I hug you? One last time?" I opened my arms, and she stepped into them. We held each other for a long moment, saying goodbye to what once was and what might have been. When we broke apart, I saw she was crying. I handed her my handkerchief, always did carry one, just like my daddy taught me. "Take care of yourself, Savannah Grace." She nodded, clutching the handkerchief. "You too, Jackson Lee." I walked to my truck and got in, watching in the rearview mirror as she stood there on the sidewalk. When I turned the corner, she was still standing there, a small figure getting smaller until she disappeared from view. My phone buzzed with a text from Colton. "You're a better man than most, brother." I smiled, thinking about how far I'd come from that night at the wedding. I'd lost a girlfriend but found myself in the process. Turns out, boring and predictable aren't such bad things to be. Reliable, steady, content, these are virtues, not flaws. It just took losing everything to help me see it. As I drove home, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. "Hi Jack, this is Emma from the hardware store. I was wondering if you'd like to grab coffee sometime?" I smiled. Emma, the pretty brunette who always helped me find the right parts, who laughed at my bad jokes and never seemed to mind my grease-stained hands. "I'd like that," I texted back. "How about Saturday?" Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about moving on and finding happiness on your own terms. And sometimes, when you're least expecting it, happiness finds you right back.